welcome to Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. My name is John Polnik. I'm your host, coming to you from Las Vegas, the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada, along with my partner Michael Deeb, coming to you from San Francisco, where it's cold. What is up, Michael Deeb? How are you, sir?
Look at this. I still got my farmer tan from from Monterey, hanging out with you down there in Monterey, and all of the nerd herd at Works reunion, which was so much fun, and seeing all the old friends. It definitely felt like a reunion. Even though I did go to Monterey last year, I felt like I saw 5 people, whereas in Monterey this year, I couldn't walk 10 feet without seeing 5 people who I hadn't seen in a long time. So to everybody that I got to say hello to and to all the people I missed, I had a blast. It was great going down with you and Yuri and seeing the professor and everybody else. It was really fun.
Yeah, man, it was kind of an amazing culmination from a big old road trip that I went on. It wasn't the very end of my road trip. I still had to go from there and make my way back to Vegas in a 40-year-old car with no AC. But had a great time. Shout out to all the people that we saw there. Ben the Professor, of course, the most notable. Thanks for the invite. Sorry I couldn't take you up on that, Ben. We had a great time seeing it.
Shout out to Jeff Harley, like one of my best friends in the whole wide world, who I stayed with and saw for like all of 3 minutes. Like I stayed at his place, and I don't think I spent 5 minutes with the guy. I feel terrible. He really wanted me to go to Pebble. I was exhausted, and so after Concorso and showing a car all day with Yuri, the Alpha 8C that belonged to Rafi, I was wiped. I got up at 6 a.m. like 3 days in a row, and I had nothing left. So, anyways, I feel like I Irish goodbye to everybody in Monterey, but I still had fun while I was down there.
Man, you're making me want a coffee because I'm feeling drained just thinking about the last week. But it's great to be back in the studio with all of you. Listen, do us a favor. Subscribe. Hit the notification button. What are you doing? You're a nerd if you're watching the show.
Yeah.
If you're here, you need to do your part and, spread the word, share a nerd. Grow the herd. Make it happen.
Come on.
Look, Michael Deeb has that big stupid fist. Look what he got, man.
Oh, cousin Mark hooked you up. Look at that.
On.
Smash the like button. Subscribe.
I hate that phrase, smash the like button, but you really should do that if you haven't already. We really appreciate you guys being fans of the show. And we saw a bunch of them.
Yeah, we did.
Shout out to a bunch of our fans, all 3 of them.
Mike and Jerome. Yep.
Was every single person that watches the show at Works Reunion? It feels like it because we only
both
have
of them.
8 people watching. All right, guys, let's get to the car today. Today's car is this is definitely interesting. There's no way you could say that this is not one of the most interesting cars on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. What are we looking at, Michael Deeb?
JP, I'm guessing you probably don't know exactly what this car is. Even looking at it, there's no way you could tell. There's so many cool parts of this car. Basically, on Bring a Trailer is this 1972 Porsche 911T. And in 1970, oh, good God, it's going to take me a minute to figure this out. In 1978, they sent the car, a 911T, they sent it back to Porsche. And Porsche has a department called Porsche Works 1, where you're a customer to the racing department. And so if you send the car to Porsche Works 1, a guy who was a regular rally competitor in the SCCA sent this car over in 78 and got it back the same year. And basically Porsche did the makeover and turned this into a Safari, albeit now a Works rally car, by essentially eschewing the 2.2 liter motor and dropping in a 3 liter RS motor, a 3 liter flat 6 with an MFI and high butterfly throttle bodies. I'm guessing this car probably makes somewhere close to 300 horsepower. I think they rebuilt the 915 gearbox. They did all the adjustable suspension and the light bar and all this stuff. They sent it back to this guy, and he campaigned the car from the 1979 through the 1983 seasons. And what's cool is in 83, when he was done, he sold the car to the car's second owner, and the second owner could go road register it because it's still a 72 911T. So even in California, you can hang a plate off this car. Can you imagine, John? You can hang a plate off this car, and it's a road legal car, according to the numbers, according to the Department of Traffic in the U.S. and the DMV in California. I just think this is just one of the coolest cars. So you're talking about 4 racing seasons in the SCCA Rally, and he also raced it in another series that's less known. But I love that this was a factory safari makeover, and that they're the ones that built this car. And there is documentation that accompanies this car. This car was also parked at Laguna Seca in the Bring a Trailer alumni parking display at the track. So I think a lot of people, I'm guessing thousands of people, saw this car over the last week parked at Laguna Seca. And so here it sits on Bring a Trailer. Just a really, really interesting car. I imagine a ton of fun to drive, but the provenance on this sets it. Bring me the coolest safari builds. Our friend Kelly Smith is building some incredible cars, JP, that you can elaborate on. I think they're in Wisconsin with that really great group of guys that are making some cool cars up there. But
yeah,
come on,
Kelly
between
Moss
you and me,
yeah. What's that?
Yeah, between you and me, wouldn't you rather have this more beat up, like, issue the vanity, like, forget the vanity, let's just make a car that goes in the snow or goes in the dirt or whatever? Like, I just think this is the coolest damn car of all of them when it comes to safaris. So this to me was the most interesting. John, I'll let you take it away. Sky's the limit on this one. Where would you go with a factory rebuild? I mean, I guarantee you and I will be off by over $100,000 on the final value on this car. And will we see the real value? Will it sell?
Yeah, didn't 72s have the oil flap on the quarter panel?
Yeah, but if they put a new
Wide fender on it, yeah.
Wide fender on it, maybe they moved the tank to the front, I'm guessing, to help with weight balance. The tank was in the front, but maybe they did the filler in the front because of the motor and all those stuff. I'm guessing, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
Little nerd detail there. The thing that strikes me about this car is not just how obviously freaking cool this is. I mean, it's shocking to me to think that this existed this whole time and didn't get thrown away. Because look, safaris are all the rage now, crossovers, SUVs. But you think about in the 70s and 80s, the idea of taking a normal car and going off-road was just absurd, especially in America. It reminds me of the Eagle. Remember the AMC Eagles of the late 70s and early 80s. Some of the ugliest cars ever made, but they were the early crossovers, and they just weren't well received. They were so far ahead of their time. Do you remember the AMC Eagle? It was like a 4-door wagon that was, it was basically a safari car from the factory. It was a crossover, but everyone was just like, what is that? The general public just couldn't put their brain around something like that.
Right.
So here's a 911, which everyone knows what a 911 is. I can't imagine something like this being driven around, even in California or wherever this car was being driven around. I can't imagine this car being received well until at the soonest 10 years ago. I mean,
but I mean,
but even
as a toy, you're talking about a privateer who went and campaigned this car for 4 seasons in the SCCA with a car that was essentially a works car, even though he wasn't on a works team. And, he had moderate success as a privateer, but like Porsche went back and raced. They like, this car has the seeds of all the ingredients that went into, do you remember, John, that really rare car, the 911 SCRS? Do you remember that rare car that was essentially like a works rally car? Things that are in this car, Porsche put into their own car and sold and campaigned. And so Porsche went and raced that car in like 82 and 83 and 84 to try and pick up wins where this guy missed.
That's not my point at all. I mean, I agree with you on all that stuff. I mean, look at the 959, the greatest Porsche of all time. That car was built as a Dakar rally car, right? So Porsche as a factory definitely understands the value of these, rally type vehicles. The thing that's weird though is that, they just, it's that 10, 15, 20 years that this car lived in between the first however many, years that it was being raced and loved, and then till the mid-aughts when Safaris became in vogue again. How many beautiful, amazing 911s, just regular 911s, were just like pitched aside because they were kind of cheap for the longest time. The fact that this thing made it through the 90s, the fact that this thing made it through, think about it, in the 90s and the late 80s, they were taking old 911s and making slant noses out of them, or forward dating old ones to try to make them look like a new car. This car, I guess the fact that it was an actual race car is the only thing that saved it, because nobody took this thing and tried to make it look modern or tried to change it in any way. And it's spectacular.
To that point, the point I'm trying to make is I think you could say this car is the father of the SCRS and the grandfather of cars like the 959, the Dakar Works cars that Porsche wound up having success with all around the world. And so as such, it seems to me that at least a handful of custodians that might have had their hands on this car realized what it was, or maybe how important what it was, and resisted the temptation to do the things that you suggest a lot of happened to most cars.
This thing survived. Thank God this thing survived. And it's crazy because you got cars like this, and they've inspired. So you had mentioned our friend Kelly Smith, who who has Kelly Moss Racing in Wisconsin.
No relation.
Confusing. He has a couple of cars being built there, and Kelly Moss is known for these spectacular off-road
unbelievable
rally 911s. And they've inspired some other. There's other Safaris on Bring a Trailer like right now. There's this 964. And you look at that car that we were just talking about, and you look at something like this, and you're just like, how did you get this ugly monstrosity from the greatness that was built before? What were you doing, dude? This sucks.
Look at this is a vanity build. This guy is not going to go get it dirty. Why would you safari a Targa? That doesn't make any sense. The whole idea of safaring is to go drive it in dirt and sand, and there's no way this guy wants his interior dirty. He's got quilted suede driving seat, John. This is the vanity build if ever there was one. Boy, sometimes the pendulum swings way to the other side of the spectrum,
Yeah, this car just kind of makes me angry. Look at what kind of sensibilities said.
That's a flex capacitor. You could travel through time.
What is happening, dude? And with the gold, okay. Kelly Moss makes some amazing off-road cars. This isn't one of them. Let's make sure we don't. Yeah. Let's make sure we don't confuse that. Look, it's in a pretty interesting. Collection of cars or whatever. But it's so, you think about what Porsche did so long ago, and now the Safari thing is all the rage. And I've said it on this show, I've said it on other shows. I kind of follow along with our good friend Elon Musk, who is a big friend of the show. We hang out with him all the time. He doesn't know we exist. But
in space.
He shot. He said probably 10 years ago that in the future owning a car will be like owning a horse is now. It's something that only enthusiasts would do, people that have the space. If you own a horse, you have to have property and a horse ranch and that sort of thing. So I've said in the past that it's like, I think that the last bastion of automotive enthusiasm will be off-road vehicles, because all the stuff that's on the road is going to have to be patched into the grid and the AI and all the safety, blah, 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 blah. We can get into that stuff some other time. But the only place where all those things won't exist is out in the dirt. So a car like this, we always talk about how Porsche is always ahead of their time. We're Porsche fanboys. Boy, they were really ahead of their time with this one.
Unbelievable. So cool. So cool. I think this car is really interesting. That being said, I have no idea how to begin to quantify the value of this car because in the end, John, something is only worth what somebody will pay for it. So is there enough written here? Is the audience large enough? Is the economy strong enough to support what this essentially a consigner is hoping to achieve? At the moment, John, our car is sitting at $225,000 with just a couple days to go on 6 bids. Let me pull it up one more time and see. Yeah, it hasn't really budged since we teed it up. But anyway, I kind of think that this car might fail to bring what it might actually be worth based on its provenance or maybe what the owner is hoping to get. So I'm going to go $400,000 and say that it fails to sell at that number, and that in all likelihood the consignor is looking to get $600,000 and up. If the owner is thinking 600 grand or 750 grand, that wouldn't surprise me. If that guy is thinking 800 to $1 million or more, I don't think it's going to happen because there wasn't a Porsche. It wasn't a Porsche didn't race the car. A privateer raced the car, and it did. As far as I could tell, it didn't really win anything. It's just it's the seeds that essentially sprouted a really great lineage in the 80s and 90s of rallying for Porsche and sports car racing around the world. So just really cool stuff here, and I think it's worth some money. It could be $500,000, but I don't think they'll see it. So my bid to you, John, is 400 grand, and I'm going to stand on that and say it fails to sell at that number because I think it's probably worth more than that.
Yeah, I think your analysis is spot on. A 73 RS, how much is that worth? That's a dead man's car.
Yeah,
in
three
Jerry Seinfeld's
quarters.
world, right?
Yeah, $750,000 or
Wait,
more.
A real one is only
A 73
worth
RS.
A real 73 RS is only worth $750,000.
Yeah, a lightweight will bring over $1 million.
Okay.
A 73 RS, you can get one for 750, 800 grand.
Okay, yeah, all right. So this car is certainly more rare than those. It has the same powertrain. It's got the fender flares. Are the fender flares from this an RS fender flare? I mean, what?
I'm
fender flare
sure
is
they
this?
are. I bet they are. I'd be willing to bet they are.
Did these get stamped out from the same die set that we were able to put our hands
Right.
on
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
were there in Germany a few years ago at the Porsche
Yeah.
Classic Roundtable?
Chances are the answer is yes, because
Yeah.
it was the base car was a 72T, was a narrow body. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm going to go yes, strong yes at the factory for sure.
I mean, just that ducktail in aluminum is worth more than probably my 911. Okay, so what's it worth? I'm with you. I actually think, 6 months ago when things were a raging, this car may have bought $1 million. I mean, it's just that things were so crazy. But I think they're calming down. I agree with you that this thing should be worth way more than $500,000. I'm going to park it at $500,000. I'm going to go $100,000 over. You said what? 400?
I said 400. You're going to say 500?
I'm going to go $100,000 more than you, and kind of
That might
agree
be a
with you.
record.
I think it's going to. Yeah, it's the highest thing. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's just no comps. Who knows?
Yeah.
Real RSs, like you said, $750,000. So this car is cooler to me than any 73 RS. To me personally, the rally thing is awesome.
Okay,
but
I
don't
have
think
to
it'll be
quantify.
realized. I think it'll fail to sell.
Okay, I have to quantify my answer because I said 400 grand. It'll fail to sell at that price. This is a no reserve auction. It's staring me right in the face, and I didn't even pay attention to that. So this car is gonna sell. So
Whoa.
if it's 400 or 500, it's gonna sell. This guy is at least smart enough to say, okay, the market is going to dictate what it's worth. I don't, I'm not married to what it's going to bring. My guess is he probably bought it for 100 grand 10 years ago or something when nobody gave a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So this will be interesting. So I'm going to stand on my 400. I think it'll bring a little more than that, knowing that everybody knows it's going to sell. So your 500 is probably right on the money. But we'll see if it's light or not. It certainly got some attention this week being parked at the track. I think that was a really shrewd move to bring it down there for the week. So let's see what happens. This will be interesting to watch. So there you go. Let's see.
How much do you think this stupid one's going to sell for?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably get up to it's at 65,000 now. It closes in a couple days. I say it probably brings twice that, like 125 or something, and I think it probably fails to sell at that price. But who knows? Who cares?
I don't even think this thing breaks 80. I think it's.
You don't think so? I bet somebody
it's
does.
the sensibilities are so wrong on this car. Even, I mean, this is just. This is.
I'm gonna write down. I'm gonna write down your guess just in case we review both answers. So 80 grand. I say 125, but I still think it fails to sell at 125. I bet this guy wants more than that.
Yeah,
He's trying to get his money out of it. He's never going to.
This car this is the slant nose of the future right here. This is going to be, people are going to be like, look at what people did to 911s back then. I mean, you can do it right and they're awesome. This ain't it. All right, guys, what do you think? Tell us in the comments below. That was kind of a half-assed 2 for Tuesday. I don't even know if it's Tuesday when we publish this thing. But Safari build Porsches. Is it a fad? Is it going away? Is it really, did Porsche have a crystal ball in the future and say, did they know that 50, 60, 70 years in the future there would no longer be roads to drive?
Here's a Safari analogy. A Safari analogy. Is it an oasis or a mirage?
Look at this guy. He's being all fancy. All right. What do you guys think below? Hit the subscribe, like, and notification button right now. And we're going to tell you just what happens with this auction right after this. Okay, guys, I want to tell you about Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming. This is one of our big sponsors. It's the biggest car show of the year in Las Vegas. It's one of the coolest car shows you can possibly experience anywhere. If you haven't made plans to be part of Vegas Auto Fest on September 17th, then do it now. Go to vegasautofest.com and register your car. You think you're a car enthusiast? Doesn't matter where you live. Plan a trip to Vegas on September 17th and come out and see this show. It's like Monterey Car Week all in a day. Have you ever been to the Quail? Have you ever been to Works Reunion? Have you ever been to Amelia Island? All those car shows are amazing and great. Have you been to Luftkult? Sure, but Vegas Auto Fest is something special. Make a plan for September 17th. We'll see you in Vegas. Welcome back to the show, guys. Bid Nerd, daily nerd on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Did you hit that subscribe button? I sure hope you did, because you're a nerd and you deserve to be part of the herd. You need to know when the latest nerds are available. Hey, okay, so this car is pretty crazy. We just time traveled into the future for you. You've been watching this episode, yeah. So what happened, Michael Deeb? This is a pretty darned amazing car. And why don't you talk about it? I'm trying to get it up on screen, and we're having some issues here.
JP, we're talking about the rally car. This guy had a 911T, sent it to Germany, and Porsche did this thing that they call, let me just read it to you again, because I had never heard of it before this. They sent the car to Zuffenhausen to the racing department, and they performed a Porsche Works 1 project where they rebuilt the car to essentially RS specifications. They made a Safari car.
Michael Deeb, I gotta break in here. How long have we been doing the show? You and I are time travelers.
Yeah.
Right? The people just saw this.
I know, but
they know what it is. You're going over the same stuff we just talked about a minute ago. For you guys, if you're watching the show, it's been a week since we've talked about this thing, so we're reminding ourselves. Forget it. Well, they know what the car is. We get it.
Okay.
Talk about the results, man.
Oh, boy. All right, well, we did good. This car was a no-reserve auction. JP, I said $400,000. You took the over at $500,000. That $100,000 might be the biggest spread between our bids. Our car, no reserve, sold for $350,000. And when you consider all the extra zeros on the number of this car, I'd say I was pretty close. And I'd say you really weren't that far away. $350,000 seems like a deal for what is essentially a Safari RSR built by the factory. I would say this car was incredibly well bought. It's also worth noting there was only 22 bids on this car. I would say, considering the interesting and amazing provenance of this car, that's not a lot of action. So I wonder if the consignor is happy with this number. He certainly had some cojones to do this thing no reserve, but there's not a lot of comps. I wonder if even he knew what it was worth. So there you go, $350,000. That's all it took to get a what, almost one of one car from the factory at Porsche, I'd say that's a screaming deal for the money. What do you think?
I know Kelly Moss Racing is charging that for one of their versions of it, one of their modern versions. Is a modern version better than this? Functionally, probably, but is it as cool as this? Hell no. This is an original car. This was built by the factory. I am pretty darn shocked by this result. This is one of those things where just, the market, people are going to scratch their heads and go, oh, market softening or this, that, and the other. But we're seeing results for other cars that we're still seeing some pretty big records on other stuff. I think this car, as much as BAT is a great platform for selling stuff, I think this car needed to be probably at one of those Sotheby auctions or something, something live, Barrett Jackson. This car needed to be on TV. This car, I thought at $500,000, I kid you not, I thought that was low. So, again, because we were talking about before the break how much 73 RS would be. Those are $750,000. So, okay, I get that there are fewer people that want something like this, but doesn't a Jerry Seinfeld or some other person or, somebody, if you have a dead person car, right? Jerry Seinfeld calls the 73 RS a dead person car because the only way you get one is if someone dies. This seems like a car that fits that category, maybe even more.
Yeah.
How many of these are there?
There isn't. That's what I'm
saying. Right. That's my point.
Jerry Seinfeld doesn't have one because this is.
Nobody has one. This is it.
Really, really rare. They might have made one or two others. They certainly it offsprung the SCRS, but this car being an original, it's too cool. It's too rare. And I agree, John. Since we introduced this car a couple days ago, and now. We're capping it essentially and doing the reconciliation on the result. We have gotten all the results from Monterey have trickled in, and I sent you that email. The numbers are staggering. We're talking about a lot of this sort of bottom feeder, lower end cars, affordable cars that everyday people like you and I could sort of afford. All that collector stuff that went through Monterey this year set new records, and I don't think anybody, not even the experts, saw the amount of money that went through Monterey as I don't think anybody predicted that that's what's going to happen. The results to me seem unbelievable. A lot of new high water marks for certain models. So a rare car like this on an auction site during car week, somehow I feel like this is a failure for the consignor.
Yeah, compare this car. We also, before the break, talked a little bit about this kind of modern rendition of a safari car. And this thing was just a bad job. It definitely, Kelly Moss does some amazing stuff. This is not a Kelly Moss car. This is a Valley Motorsports, those guys,
right.
Whoever that is. Maybe I should know
They're
who they
just
are.
a shop.
But boy, this vision... maybe executed well. I don't know. Technically, I'm sure the car is great, but it sure is not something to look at.
Well, you and I just flirted with this car. I thought $125,000. You were much more negative on this car, so you said $80,000. The car sold for $118,000 on 46 bids. So look at that. It got more than twice as many bids as the real one, you know what I mean? Yeah. And at $118,000. So I don't know. Is that an interesting result? It's just weird. It seems like a much more niche car where I'd see like more collectors would want the other car. I'm surprised by both results. I'm surprised this actually made it 118, and actually I'm not, because the vanity that goes into these things. But that other car, I'm staggered it didn't meet your $500,000.
Is the takeaway from this that, and we talked about this a little bit before the break, is it good to be selling a car on a digital auction during car week or just before car week? And my takeaway is, and I don't know if this is accurate, and I'm curious to see what our audience thinks. You guys tell us in the comments below. But my take on this is that the big money is usually on BAT. But I think the big money for that particular week during car week was in Monterey. They were on the ground. They're having a good time. and they can't be bothered with something, trying to grab an auction on the phone or whatever. They want to buy the stuff that they can put their hands on and see right in front of them. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's kind of the way it seems to me. What do you think of that take?
Small sample size that we've looked at, I'd agree with you. I certainly, if I was looking to sell a car online next year, I'd want going in to make sure that auction site wasn't going to run my car during car week. I wouldn't want that. Maybe in a couple weeks leading up to it while people are getting their buying caps on, but certainly not there. I actually think, the handful of people that bought these fancy cars in Monterey, the collectors, they got money burning in a hole in pocket, they're showing off for their colleagues, whatever the case may be. I feel like the people that go to Car Week come home inspired. Maybe you saw a car at Car Week and you're like, oh man, I've always wanted a 924 Carrera GT, and Deeb and I saw that silver and red one and it was so cool. Like I want to find one of those. So like, I feel like the week's post might be really good. It'll be interesting to see what our predictions look like compared to the results in these next few weeks, as we sort of the aftermath of Monterey Car Week. Everybody going home, do people have that itch that they feel like they want to run out and buy something before the season's over? I would think so. I certainly do. I come back from a car week, there's half dozen cars on my hit list I want to own all of a sudden because I saw one down there and I'm like, damn it, I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah, boy, this car would be cool if we see it at Luftkult, right? And that's just coming
absolutely.
up in a month.
I hope it stays in state. I'd love to see that car. I didn't make it to the track, so I didn't see it in person when it was on that static display. So I'd love to see this car. Actually, I'd rather see this car on the Professor Run, to be honest. Let's keep it real.
Is he going to add a dirt portion to the Professor Run this year? That would be pretty dope.
Yeah. He would.
All right, guys.
WA. Yeah.
You're right. What do you guys think of the results? Would you be cool with selling your car on a digital auction during Car Week when all the big in-person auctions are happening? Or do you think that's a bad idea like my partner apparently does? Tell us in the comments below, and make sure you hit the subscribe, like, and notification button. Join the herd by spreading the word. Be a nerd. Spread the nerd. I don't know.
Share the nerd.
Share the nerd. That's what we want you to do. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.